Welcome to today's episode. Super stoked, very excited. We have us Dane Tomas. Welcome, darling.
What's up? Hey, Ria Yoshida. How are you?
I'm so good to be here with you. It feels amazing. We were literally just together a month ago. I can't even remember.
Feels like a year, but about 5 weeks ago, something like that.
That's right. And it was amazing to just, feel you in person, see the way you move through a room and a space, how you like to weave your magic, which we'll be diving deeper into today's episode. And for those of you who don't know, Dane is an esoteric entrepreneur who mixes business and sex magic and created the modality called the spiral. He is also nicknamed the Dark Wizard in some circles.
Dun, dun, dun.
I love it. It's so good. So yes, we talked a lot about, what to talk about on this episode. And ultimately it comes down to what's most alive for you right now. And something around magic and sex meeting magic. Talk to us.
Yeah, I guess that stuff has gradually sort of taken over my life. So at the moment, I'm talking to you from Berlin. Like you said, we just hung out in the States, and I'm kind of just following this thread of where is like temple culture happening, and where is esoteric or magical stuff going down. And the way I like to dance with that in the real world is sort of, I think of myself as an entrepreneur, and I like to make stuff actually happen in the real world. We kind of talked about that just before, but I love working with magic, energy, eros, life force, and then channeling that into purpose and manifestation and making stuff happen, basically.
I love it. I totally relate on all the Jimmy Jams, especially making stuff happen, because the esoteric realm and magic and the language, it's so easy to get, I don't know, for lack of a better word, perhaps lost in it. So yeah. I'm just curious, how do you relate with the esoteric realm, the vastness, the diversity of it, while, I don't know, my interpretation or hallucination might be that you're anchored somehow in the, quote unquote, real world, the three-dimensional, the physical world. So just talk to us about navigating that gap.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I got started in sort of spirituality and energy and all that stuff, probably it was in my teens, and it was very ascension based. It was go up to the higher realms, and it was Buddhism, and it was psychedelics, and it was meditation, and it was also wonderful. But after going down that path or up that path for quite a few years, I sort of started clocking onto the fact that a lot of the people in those realms I guess they were powerful in the mental and powerful in the energetic or etheric, like these higher realms. If people can't see, they just think I'm waving around with my hands above my head. People were really, really advanced in like Rainbow Dolphin Land, but they're all fucking broke and they can't pay their rent, or or their art projects and never really get off the ground, or there's a lot of that, and I was a bit like that too. I have big dreams, big visions, and very little ability to kind of produce. And at a certain point, I started getting into like, I guess what I would call clearing work, clearing emotional blocks, shadow work, trying to unpack the bits of me that weren't so functional. So getting a bit more down and dirty with the kind of messier stuff. And then on the other side of that, I started really getting into business and really trying to make stuff happen in the world. And it was a different, I got in rooms with different kind of people, and they were super fucking driven, and it was very different than the kind of Vipassana meditators and the whatever. It was like fucking go, go, go. What's your revenue? What's your profits? What's your whatever? What's your big dreams? And it was like, oh, these guys are about like making shit happen. And so somewhere along the lines, I started trying to like synthesize the two worlds, because what became clear over a while was, you know, the Tantra crew sucked at business, and the business crew, they were kick ass, but they weren't super juicy, you know? And you could, if I mentioned like, I don't know, anus or self-pleasure or whatever, these kind of business guys would kind of giggle like little kids. And it's like, you guys have you've done some of your work around money and power, but you haven't done a lot of work around sex. And then like you hang around with the cutest, most beautiful hippie babes you've ever seen, and they've done heaps of work around being juicy and sexy and flowy and whatnot, but like it seemed to be real hard for them to like make anything fucking happen. And so for me, I started just trying to synthesize like how do you translate one to the other, and you know, how do you bring ideas that are up here above the head down into the ground, and how do you make shit happen without being too stuck in hustle, and how do you have a blissful, pleasurable, magical life without drowning in, you know, Shakti emotional flow. And so I guess it's all a bit about integration, really.
Yes. Wow. Sex, money, power. Really beautiful. And this piece around integration, you know, I'm imagining, so from like, based on what you're sharing with me, the way these people, different crews embodied these big energies, right? So you have the business crew that's embodying money and power. You've got the hot hippie babes, love them. Oh yes.
Love them.
Who are embodying sexuality and flow and juiciness. Like they're embodying these energies, right? For lack of a way of quantifying it. So I'm just curious, like, do you feel sex, money, and power? Like, do they have different origin points, or is it just how it gets embodied, or who embodies which aspect first?
Yeah, it's pretty new age, but I relate to a lot of it through chakras, you know? So I sort of tend to relate in like what part of the body we're kind of emanating from, you know? So we go back to the early stages of these highly conscious, very, you know, cognitive guys. It's like big kind of ajna, popped open mind, but not really a lot of balls or like base or feet on the ground kind of energy. And I sort of resonate with it about, oh, those guys really do have in clear consciousness, you know, like if you sit around meditating and you read fucking tantric scriptures and whatever, like, and whatever it is you're into, you start to cultivate that higher consciousness. It works, you know? Well, there's two ways to look at it too. Is it that the people who do that stuff develop higher consciousness, or is it that the people who are really comfortable with consciousness in the mind end up doing that stuff? You know, it's a bit of a chicken or the egg, right? Like we kind of all like to go where we're already strong, you know, like that's a really common human thing of like the people who are really driven and really pushy, of course they get good at business because like, well, to make the shit happen, you know? And so what I've tried to do is sort of dance somewhat in the realms where I kind of suck, you know, at least some of the time. And when I realized I was a consciousness, you know, like a head on a stick kind of guy, eventually I stumbled my way into like embodiment and tantra and de-armoring and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, I think I probably need to do a bunch of this work, you know? I think I'm kind of a bit stuck up here. And a little bit of that work paid off a lot because it opened up what I didn't have. And then I did a bit more and I did a bit more. And then I needed to take a break and go back to the other side. And yeah, what I found was from hopping around these different subcultures, I sort of see it through these lenses of things like chakra system, spiral dynamics, or energetics. You know, what energy are they strong in? What energy are they weak in? Or what skill set have they developed, and what skill set have they not developed? And not that I'm saying I'm like super all round perfected or anything, but my goal has been to try to balance out weaknesses and develop strengths, and sort of not just be stuck in one dimension, I guess.
Beautiful. And there's some kind of ingredient that you were able to tap into and integrate within yourself versus, giggling immaturely, like maybe your biz crew did around self-pleasure or anal or any of those conversations, but something you were able to smell it or see the value. What was that like?
Yeah. I think, I'm kind of a maps and models nerd as part of it. Like human behavior kind of maps is one of my geeky obsessions, but also just tracking that trail of, as a rapper for 10 years, I was a broke Aussie rapper who did battles and competitions and went on tour and was kind of good and kind of known, but didn't make a lot of money. And a lot of my friends were all super like just underground on the dole, sell weed, like sell a few records, but not like highly socioeconomically successful, right? And I eventually went into the coaching world and did a diploma in life coaching at a kind of prestigious coaching institute in Australia. And I remember my first weekend being there, and I was just hating everyone. I'm sort of sitting in the back with a kind of black hoodie on, and like, some guy in a pinstripe suit's talking about how you can make $25,000 a month coaching executives. And I was like, this is fucking bullshit. Fuck these people. These people make me sick. They're disgusting. They're losers. They're lying. Oh, I just fucking hate this shit. It's so fake, man. Jump back on the train, hoodie on, got home, and I was just like, do you think maybe I've got like stuff about money, I think I might have some shit around money. And I was like, oh, fuck, I think I do. I think that reaction that I just had was because I feel poor when I'm in that room, when everyone's like sharp and talking wealth and talking these numbers that, if I did 25 grand a month now, it would be a bad month. It'd be my worst month in fucking 5 years, But back then, that was just like, that's like half a year's income. That's just, it can't be true. Cannot be true. But something in me, just understanding there's a mirror going on here. And if I'm that fucking crazy about it, there's something going on, in the same way as like first sexuality rooms. And it's like, oh, these people are fucking crazy. This is outrageous. And it's like, yeah, it's all right, little fella. Like, think we might have some stuff around sexuality, And it's just like just having that recognition. I think I was working with kinesiology and emotional clearing and that sort of stuff from way, way back. And the idea was you find a trigger, you clear up that trigger, and then you step into that thing, and then you get better at that thing. And I think I've just tried to apply that to each new area and go from like terrible to average to good to sometimes really skilled in that area. And that's been the journey so far.
Brilliant. So let's say, we got you, we're listening. You had enough intelligence to say, hey, I'm having a strong reaction to this. There's an attraction or repulsion. Either way, there's a strong pull or push or something's happening. And then, so you're like, okay, let me get into this world. Let me really figure this out and take it on. And you really are the bridge, right? Maybe you have another word to describe yourself between these two worlds of like three-dimensional make shit happen and esoteric magic realm. So like, talk to us about having both feet in both worlds.
Yeah, it's been very uncomfortable at certain points, and now I'm quite I'm quite comfortable with that uncomfortable position. Whereas I used to just be like, it's too weird, nobody understands it. Now it feels like a very natural position. And when I talk about magic and think about magic, I think of it as quite a practical thing. I don't just mean the fluffy spiritual higher realms. I kind of think of magic as the art and science of making shit happen. So bringing that spirit down into matter, bringing that idea down into 3D, taking something you believe in and charging it up with your will and your life force and action and energy until it becomes a real three-dimensional thing or a real tangible thing. And I think I've been trying to do it for years, but I think the technology and the practices have gotten better and better over the last, it's probably like 20 years of this shit, you know? And it used to be, you know, I remember having like 20, maybe more, maybe 25 years ago, I'd done Reiki, right? So Reiki was one of my tech, you know, okay, I can do symbols on things, and something would happen, you know, I'd be going on a date or whatever, and I'd have some emotion come up, and I'd be trying to like Reiki symbol to change the thing, you know? And looking back on it, that's super adorable, because that's probably the least effective fucking technology to point at anxiety around dating. You know, like right now I would use, I don't know, an embodiment practice, or I would do emotional clearing, or I would reframe it, or I would, you know, I'd do something more appropriate to the specific situation. And it's like for me when I hear like you know, like ayahuasca people, you know, and so they're into ayahuasca, which is cool. You know, it's amazing technology, amazing medicine, whatever you want to call it. But there can be this thing of like, what I say, it's like if you've got a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail, right? You know, like if you're like, it's going to sit with the mother, and it's like, you know, really haven't handled my financial issues. You know, I think I should just go and like sit with the mother, and it's like, shut up. It's not the right medicine for this issue. Like the right medicine for this issue is like beliefs and journaling, and maybe you should like go and hang around with people who are good at money, or you should read some fucking finance books, or you should, you know, even stick a butt plug in and do some magic around wealth, you know, and activate the base and like shed some fear. But at least I guess what's happened over 20 years is getting gradually more accurate at which tools for the job, because I think there's this adorable but inefficient thing that spiritual people do, which is use whatever the one modality we've got, we try to use it on whatever the problem is, you know. And it's like you don't use, I don't know, you don't use a screwdriver to like hammer in nails, right? You don't use a saw to like bake a cake. It doesn't work very well. And so I think I've been mixing and matching tools and gradually figuring out what helps with what. And I have a sort of a formula for magic, which is basically, you can boil it down to like intention meets vibration. You know, it's like the mind and the body. If the mind and the body are on the same page, the thing's going to happen. But if, you know, if you're holding the vision of it, but your emotional responses and your actions are completely contradictory to that vision, the thing's not going to happen. Or likewise, you're doing the right stuff, but your internal beliefs and your internal way you see yourself is completely contradicting. It's going to be very difficult to make the result. So the way I look at it now, you know, I'm constantly trying to help myself or other people or groups of people get this alignment from the spirit to the matter, or the mind to the body. And that's kind of what I think magic is.
Yes, it really reminds me of this saying. I don't know where it's from, but it's like too much medicine becomes poisonous.
Yeah.
And just
yeah.
a little bit of poison is actually quite medicinal.
Yeah, a little bit of poison is good. Yeah. It's like building that tolerance. That was me hanging out in business rooms at first, right? It's like, oh, these guys are so triggering. It's like, just go for one day. If it's a 2-day event, see if you can hang in there for one day. Actually, maybe I'm going to fuck off at lunchtime, but I'll just watch the first 2-hour section, you know, and I go home and I like think about that. And I was like, way back then, that was enough, you know. It was enough fucking sales and marketing and people in suits trying to upsell me to the next thing or whatever. Like, that's all I could metabolize. But, you know, 5 or 6 years later, I was incredibly comfortable with that world. And yeah, same with the tantric world. You know, it was like, started off as like very light sort of things, and then it just started going deeper and deeper down sexuality rabbit holes, and, you know, shadow integration and archetypes and all those cool things. And eventually it was just like, this is my happy place. Like, I love this place.
Yes, and finding that happy place, this muscle you were able to build, feeling comfortable with the discomfort.
Yeah.
That is huge. That is probably, I imagine, where most people get tripped up.
For sure.
You know, we lean into what's familiar, we lean into what's comfortable. We listen, the hammer worked, you know, it worked for 10 years.
Hammer works, totally. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like, what was it like for you building that muscle of like, okay, there's something here. There's something, it sounds like, that was calling you forward onto a new
Yeah.
path or exploration.
Yeah, I think there was an underlying belief that I could be more, or that more wanted to come through, or that this wasn't it, you know. And I feel like it was very slow in some periods. You know, I remember being like 19 and I'm working in like just jobs that I hated in like a gas station or kitchen hand or whatever. And all I wanted to do was be an artist. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to do music, and I was writing songs, but I didn't fully believe it, but I also wouldn't totally give up on it either. It was like just a little voice of like, you know, we should do this thing. And it was just like, oh, I don't think we could do that thing. And no one around me really fit that model. But then every now and then there'd be a little shred of, you meet one other person who's on the same path, or you know, and eventually like sharing poems and rhymes with someone who thinks it's pretty good. And then a year later, it's like, we got our first gig on stage. And it's like, you know, if you could draw a graph, the first couple of years is miserably slow, right? Like it's like starting a savings account, you know, and you're putting your $50 a month away. It's like, that's not going to make you rich anytime soon. But you're just trying to get the ball rolling. And, you know, probably 6 or 7 years of that, I'm kind of coming out of that world of like, fuck, I'm winning these competitions, I'm filling shows, I'm doing all these things. And then it kind of moved over and like, okay, relationships. I'm fucking terrible at relationships. I can get laid, I can meet people, but I can't, you know, maintain a functional relationship. They just get stuck in these patterns. So that kind of sent me down to like, what is this stuff, you know? And I'm reading all the old school kind of John Gray, Mars and Venus, you know, relating, and just trying to figure out like, what the fuck is wrong with me? You know, why does this happen? And, you know, and I think after, you know, it went like art, then relationships a bit, and then money, which was a really tough one for a while. And then money, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 years later, money starts to get easy. And then maybe relationship again at a deeper level, and then sexuality. And it's like, I think each new one, even though that kind of stucky feeling is there when you find an area that is not mature, there's a knowledge that it is possible to take an undeveloped area, or even maybe like a pathological area, like an area that is actually backwards, you know, like it's not even like, some areas are just not mature. Other areas are like, this is dysfunctional. The way you do this area of life is a fucking mess, you know? And it's never fun to look at that. But I think over the repeat journey, there becomes this belief of like, well, I got good at such and such, so maybe I could get good at this. And I got good at that, so maybe I can get good at this. And I think that just builds a bit of faith, because at the beginning, that's all you've got is faith. Because when you're really out of your depth, you know, the first hour or the first week or the first month is not usually that fun.
Yes. Small successes build confidence.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Small little ones, and pain is a great teacher.
Yeah.
And
I think,
go ahead.
yeah, the caveat for me is like, I feel like human beings are capable of massive change, and potentially massive change very quickly, within the limits of a given nervous system. I think that's where I perceive the actual respectable limitations, is like, how far can I stretch this nervous system without redlining it? And that, whether that's, okay, I'm going to try to make $1 million this year, or like, okay, hey babe, we're open relating from now, you know. And it's like, okay, you guys are just diving in. You want to just like, do you want to do it a little gradually? Oh no, you're just going to fuck a bunch of people. Okay, have a good year. It's going to be, you know, like, it's just, there's nothing wrong. And some people might be able to pull it off, but it's just like, oh, too many inputs, you know. I opened 3 businesses, and now I'm in a panic because suddenly there's just 1,000 things that have to be handled, you know. Or yeah, I'm now dating 5 people, and it was all fun when it was fun, and now everyone's upset with each other, and all my triggers have been hit. And it's like, I think that's one of my, you know, I'm working on a book about magic at the moment, and it's like, I'm working on something that is integral, you know, like, not that includes all layers of reality. And it's like, one of the rules is like honor thy nervous system, you know, like honor the hardware, because it's like, yeah, I think this is the like Marines expression, like slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? And it's like sometimes like dipping your toe every morning and going a little bit deeper is sometimes better than like just being thrown in sometimes.
Indeed. It reminds me of many a times where I just broke out in hives, and I was doing really cool, big stuff, and my body just broke out in hives. I was just covered in hives. And I was like, oh, my skin is saying things.
Yeah.
Probably overdoing my own boundaries. And in retrospect, yes, I just didn't have the language at the time, and I over pushed my system. But, you know, it was like I was in grad school, building a business, polyamory, fucking a lot of people, but madly in love, like all the things all at once. And, you know, once horizons expand, they don't shrink back. It was brilliant and beautiful. And I'm just a crazy person. So it worked for me, but that doesn't always work. But it also brought me to psychotherapy, which is not celebrated in the esoteric spiritual realm. And yet,
no,
it was good medicine. It's a good technology for me because it balanced me from being a crazy tree hugging hippie chick.
Yeah.
And I needed the mental development, the psychotherapy, like psychoanalytic, like very by the book, you know, and I'm still in it for like over 10 years, and it balances me because that was just the right amount of like quote unquote poison that was medicinal for me. Yeah. Okay, I'm getting it now. Yes. So it's not so much like the type of medicine, the type of modality, the type of technology, but really seeing yourself and feeling where you are at in your body and what will support you in your specific makeup. Support you to get aligned for your vision to manifest and matter.
100%.
Yes.
And so I think what's interesting is we're all operating, you know, we're all the same on the real basic hardware level of like, you know, nervous system, spine, eyes, you know, mouth, ears, etc. Like we're bringing in data, we're blah blah blah, and then we've got our like cultural conditioning, traumas, limitations, whatever, and then arguably we've got our like esoteric, energetic blueprint of, you know, however you want to read that, whether it's human design or astrology or just your feel on what kind of being you are. And I think all that, and then possibly more important than all of that, we've got like stages of the journey. And one of my geek out things in both business and spirituality is trying to like track developmental models, you know, whether it's someone in their first 100K of business or whether it's someone at a certain level of awakening and embodiment. There's a medicine that is appropriate at a given level that is not the medicine at the next level, you know. And it's like some of where I've been going is like, you know, to be an early stages entrepreneur, it's all about like breaking free the shackles and not giving a fuck about the rules and being impulsive and just getting things going and da 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 da. And then at a certain stage of the path, it's like systems, order, structure, organization. And when I first started meeting with that, I was like, fuck this. This is why I didn't want a job back 10 years ago. Like, this is, I have to show up for the meetings on the same day and I have to fucking, and it was like, oh, like structure. No, I'm a free thinking. And it's like, yeah, but each new level requires some of the opposite stuff, you know? And so it's like, if we're going to sort of sexual experimentation and the nervous system, you know, like, whereas one person might need to speed up and take more risks, the other person's like, you know, if you just slowed down a little bit, you'd probably learn a whole bunch of stuff. And, you know, I don't know about your open relating journey, but mine has been similar in that in the same duadic dynamic, like the same couple over different stages, the right moves have been different, where it's like, you know, let's just both slow it down for a bit and let's communicate everything, you know. And then 6 months, a year later, it's like, you know, I don't really feel like we need to tell each other everything so much. It's kind of like we're in sync, you know. And it's like, but you probably should tell me that. So there's this kind of refining back and forth of like how much information, how fast to move. And I think this is one of the tricky things of how people learn, because we try to like model other people around us, but we don't know what level they're at. You know, we don't know which incarnation of their, you know, how many stages of this journey they're in. So if we just copy their style, sometimes it doesn't work so great.
Yep, right there with you. So funny. You know, just the other day I was telling my husband, you know, honey, I don't really want to help you pick out your outfit of what you're going to wear on a date with someone else, or like which Airbnb to stay in, or like any of the logistics. But I do want you to come and kiss me and say goodbye to me. Right? It's like
Nice.
you just want to
Yeah. Yeah.
get the value, be like, which one should I wear? You know, where should I go? Where should I take this person? And then you're like, you disappear. You didn't even say bye. Like, what? You know? But it's the ability to learn from that, where I'm like, okay, for me, I got it. I don't want the details. I'm not here to help you figure out your date. You figure it out. Take ownership in that. But I'm your partner. I'm your wife. Like, give me a kiss, give me a hug. Like, I want to just, you know, wish you an amazing date.
Yeah.
Right? And learning, yeah, it's the ability to say, okay, that was a kerfuffle, or that was an ouch, or I didn't like that. How are we going to do it different next time?
Yeah. And one of the things that is how I think like magically, quote unquote, like, is that, you know, good, like it's all data. So like a good experience and a bad experience both gives me data of what is an accurate match or not an accurate match. So let's say it's a good date or a bad date, or let's say it's a product launch that rocks, or a product launch that kind of sucks a little bit. And it's like, actually, the data in the bad date or the bad launch, if I'm feeling into it vibrationally, is so useful, because it's like, oh yeah, not that. You know, it's the same as like you have average sex or bad sex, or, you know, even a bad moment in good sex, and it's like, oh yeah, I just realized, you know, that thing that's not really right for me. Which then, if we stay with it, the inversion, you know, what is right for me, what makes me feel fucking amazing, is when it happens this way. And I think a lot of the struggle in, if we want to call it manifestation, you know, is we get so locked onto the bad thing. Like, this is not what I wanted. Okay, cool. What do you want? Yeah, this is definitely not what I wanted. So what did you want? Well, I didn't want this. And it's like, you know, the audio tape is so habituated to like, not like that. I didn't like that. That was an unpleasant experience. And it's like, if we're prepared to be sort of discerning, I guess, like vibrationally discerning, that shitty experience has the blueprint and the seeds in it of the perfect experience. Because it's kind of like, if I didn't like it that way, you know, if I didn't like getting my ass hauled into US customs because of the information that was on the forms and blah blah blah, you know, I'm already designing my next landing, which is like, cool, I'm going to have the business visa set up, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and I'm already imagining through my body the smoother version and how nice it feels to just, yeah, welcome to America, sir, and just walk straight in. You know, it's like, I'm running that one already. You know, like that's what I'm shopping for, the next experience. You know, and like, it's the same with dating. It's the same with wealth. It's the same with even like, I'm traveling a lot, right? And I'm bouncing from like different cultures, and it's like, okay, it's really hard to get chili sauce here, or it's whatever. You know, it's like I'm trying to design this really streamlined, beautiful, magical life where I rock up wherever in the world and I have exactly what I want waiting for me. And some of that's logistical, like some of it's just being fucking organized, but some of it's more about internally being deserving of that kind of flow, and internally being like, just celebrating. Oh, it's so nice when you get there, you go through the fast lane, someone picks you up in a car, they take you to the villa, there's a fucking, you know, fresh pair of sneakers in the icebox, whatever it is. Like, there's things are just set up just right. And I can feel, this is very like, what are they called? You know, Abraham Hicks, like law of attraction. Sometimes I kind of take the piss out of those kind of things, but there is actually a beauty in the simplicity of that teaching of, when you can feel the vibratory match, like when it feels fucking amazing, like when you're running the idea through your body and it feels fucking amazing, it just tells you you're on track. And the more you run that, the easier it gets. And when something feels really like jarring, as much as anything, I just take it as it's telling me to change the radio dial till I find the one that is like, oh fuck yeah, like yeah.
Yes, so good. I never thought that I would love systems as much as I do now.
Yeah,
But
same.
my Virgo moon, she is so into systems. She loves it. Loves lists and organizations and like my 10 separate to-do lists depending on the project. Running a household, being in an open marriage, you know, running a company, multiple companies, like wow, it is clients, all the things. And it goes to show I'm in a different stage.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. And you know, there's so many thoughts and so many directions I want to go in. And I'm just curious, you know, what came to me is I'm curious, have you ever been booed off stage and just gotten
Yes.
that feedback? And how did you calibrate? Like, how were you able to not take that on and make it ruin ever going on stage again, but like get back on the horse, so to speak?
I have been booed off stage probably 3 or 4 times in my whole life. And that's and particularly in the battle rap scene, you know, it's like it's not always the friendliest scene. Like there's a professional circuit of it, and there's a more ghetto underground circuit, and I've played in both of them. And when I moved from Australia to the UK, in Australia, I was smashing everyone. Like I was at the top of my game. I was just doing, this is years ago, right? I was doing so well. Like I'd refined this thing, the jokes, the timing. I knew what worked on Australian crowds really well. I got to London and I was just like, I'm just going to destroy some of these dudes. You know, I could just feel like I'm fucking, you know, I'm going to make my name here. I'm going to be in and there. And like I went out at this night. I think I got through the first guy, and then the second guy, I said some jokes that just didn't really land with the London crowd. London crowd, a lot more snobby, but also like a much blacker crowd, right? Like Australia's pretty, at that time particularly, was pretty white. This was like a black London crowd who my accent was not just the flavor of that time and place, was not how I talked, you know? They got their whole London swag thing. Even how I was dressed, you know, I was kind of dressed more like an underground skater bum dude than like a kind of inner city cool, like my style changed a lot around that time, you know? And it was like, yeah, I just had a few lines that they really didn't like, and they were like throwing paper cups and shit and booing and like that hadn't happened to me really much. I was in this place of like, I'm fucking good, you know, I'm in this space, and it definitely took a bit of a toll at the time, but it also in the longer term helped me to refine my energy, I guess, with crowds. And even when I got more to like public speaking and personal development, and there's this thing of like, you know, it's like I was too aggressively penetrative without like learning how to vibrate in, you know, to use very shamanic language. It was like just fucking ramming a cock in someone's face and wondering why they're like, oh, amazing, thank you so much. It's like, get that out of here, you know. And that's kind of what happened. And it's because I came in really like pointy with my energy, you know, and I didn't really have this vocabulary at the time. But when I look back on it, I was like, you know, crowd, especially not home crowds. Like a home crowd is one thing, but a new crowd that doesn't know you, and maybe there's cultural differences, you know, it's like doing some gentler things to vibrate and feel. So I definitely got an upgrade, but it probably took me a lot of years to benefit from that upgrade, you know. And I also learned, because it happened a few times after that, that was probably the worst one. It happened a few times after that. And I started learning how to like, this is very esoteric, but be more in my vertical channel, you know, more in my connection to God and my connection to earth, and less dependent on my like, I need to get love from the other human beings in this room to feel confident, because that's especially battle rapping, you know, but even like performance in general, it can be very well, it's very nice when the more the crowd likes you, the better you get. You know, it's really natural. And I think I started learning how to sort of source from like higher connection and base connection rather than, well, I hope they like me, you know, because what if they don't, or what if they just don't understand, you know, like even small things like being with you at ISTA in the States and just listening and watching how things are communicated wasn't a ginormous cultural difference, but there's little cultural differences, and it's like, you gotta open your mouth more in this country, you know, like it's that kind of thing. It's just like, okay, yeah, they're ready for the big throat chakra in this town.
That's right. The subtleties and nuances for sure. And I ask that because, I look back on my life and there are so many key moments that have calibrated me, and it's almost, I'm shocked. Like I would not be able to have the guts, the chutzpah, the like balls to do half the shit I've done. It was this like ignorance is bliss. Like I just didn't know better. I thought I was hot shit and I just fucking went for it. And sometimes it hit the mark. Sometimes it landed. Other times it supported me to get calibrated. And now I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that,
Yeah.
But I'm glad. I'm so glad it really shaped. And now I'm in the refinement for sure.
I think that's really common in like, whether it's an artist career or whether it's like, like we know like a lot of spiritual pioneers and I know a bunch of like creators of healing modalities. And like when I rolled out my one, I was in my 30s and I was like, this is the shit. I don't care what else you've done. I don't care if you're a Buddhist, a yogi, fucking Chinese medicine. None of that counts for shit. If you haven't done the spiral, it's all this is the real thing, And it was just so over the top. Like I would never communicate like that now. I've been around so much longer and I realized there's so many ways to achieve a result, blah, blah. But in like 2012, 2013, it was like, this is the silver bullet. This is the magic pill. This is the one. Not only that, this will fix everything, one hit, 7 sessions, it'll clear all of your back catalog of shit and you'll be basically an enlightened being. You got to do it. And that was my spiel for like 2012, 2013. And probably I took a few hits in 2014. And by 2015, the pitch was starting to change and it was becoming a little more reasonable and a little more integrated and a few more disclaimers. But if I hadn't been that evangelist for sort of 2 to 3 years, I doubt that it would have reached as many people, and I doubt that it would have had the impact it had. I sold the company, I sold it. The modality is still living on and still doing well. But those obnoxious years of not knowing any better were probably. I also had a lot of fire at that stage, which I don't really roll with as much fire now. Like I use a bit, but I'm also trying to more like vibrate and magnetize and entice and make things welcoming. Back then, it was just like penetration of the world all day, every day, like just fucking get up and just penetrate. And it's, like you said, it produced some amazing results, and that's not how I would do it now. And I think that's almost part of youth or immaturity or freshness,
For sure. And that's how we gain wisdom and clarity to move forward. And I'm hearing you speak about this integration, and that sounds really potent and really powerful, and I hope that listeners get that it's not bland, it's not about balance, it's not boring, that like distilling the magic, distilling this gap between vibration and matter, and intention and energy. This piece around integration feels really powerful. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think it can sound like a boring word, but to me, it's basically sex. It's like meeting the two together is the inner marriage. It's like the mind without the body is fucking can't do anything, and the body without the mind is just kind of directionless. I sometimes think about this may or may not land for this audience, but let's see. I sometimes think about like the UFC, right? And mixed martial arts. And in the olden days, when I started watching it, it would be literally like a wrestler would fight a boxer, and we would find out who's better, the wrestler or the boxer, you know? If you're a kid learning MMA now, you learn all of it, you know? Like you learn wrestling and boxing and jiu-jitsu, and you learn how to mix it all together. And that's considered like a well-rounded modern martial artist. But until the 90s, there was no such thing. It's like you pick your one thing and you be good at that. But it was demonstrated real quick that it doesn't work so great to have these, you know, one strength and a whole bunch of weaknesses. And I think we're seeing this, like, you know, we're in this era of the world now with the internet, and we have so much access to information. And, you know, there's CEOs that make $8 million a year that don't have a good sex life. And they realize at a certain point of like, fuck, what would I pay for that? Anything, you know? And there's creepy yoga gurus living on wherever that have super developed in one or two skill sets, but their psychosocial or sexual maturity is not developed. And then we wonder why it comes out like such and such has left a trail of wounding and damage. And it's like, yeah, well, because everyone just pedestal this guy because what? Because he's a good meditator? Like, what about us made us think that that would be a great person to like relate with or whatever? Or, you know, in Australia, they have this thing with football players that, you know, we get some kid, they're really good at like throwing, catching, smashing into people. We make them famous. We pay them millions of dollars a year. And then they're like 28 and they get in a scandal where they like take a shit in a microwave and wreck a hotel room or whatever. And then everyone acts super shocked, right? Like, why would this guy who all we've ever done is like just support him athletically to grow and be really good at throwing and catching? Why wouldn't he be like morally well developed? Why wouldn't he be like a sensible, well socialized human being? And it's like there was no integration. It was just, we just be good at this and we'll pay you millions of dollars. Great. But there's no fucking psychological maturation process. So basically, I think the integration thing, one, it is sexy because it opens up so much more possibilities in life. But two, you know, when we're not integrated, it costs us in whatever area is lagging behind. That's the further we get in life, the more we wish we took care of our health when we didn't, or the more we wish I got better at relationships and now I'm all alone. Or, you know, I kind of starting to wish I handled my money stuff because living out of a van when you're 25 is cute, but when you're 45, it's kind of fucking lame, you know? And like that, you know, for me, I would like to be a little bit good at everything and then really good at one or two or three things. That'd be my ideal mixture, you know?
Oof, it is so good. Integration is sexy. Yes.
Integration is sexy. That's our message for tonight, I think.
It is so sexy. And I'm at the stage now where I paid all my taxes to date, and that feels really sexy in my body. Or my husband's like, you know what? Now that we're married, like, I'm going to offer you my company's health insurance. I'm like, oh, that is so romantic.
Amazing.
It's so romantic.
Grown-up shit.
It's some grown-up shit. And it actually allows for more play. We actually are more debaucherous in our adulting. You know, we throw these really sexy and sensual events, my husband and I, locally here. And I mean, we get debaucherous, but we are so ethical, so responsible, have a whole system of screening people. It is amazing.
I'm just picturing you in like a pile of bodies getting like pleasured, and you're just laying back and you're coming and you're like, you know, I have health insurance. And it's just like, but talk dirty to me. I pay my tax.
That's right. It's so good. And that really feels like magic. You know, I mean, I've done some pro doming and have been in the kink and BDSM scene. And there's a saying that comes from it, and I really think it applies everywhere. It's like when you have a clear beginning and a clear end of like when a scene starts, when a scene ends, when the power dynamic starts, the roles start, and the scene ends, and then we go into aftercare. Like in the middle is magic.
Yeah.
Like the structure, the systems, like all of that. So I really love exactly what you're You're throwing down some good stuff here, man. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. Integrating the opposites, you know, structure and flow, yin yang, mask fem, light dark. It's like all of it, please. Because yeah, I think we've said it all, you know, when they come together, it's just so fucking fulfilling.
And something that one of my mentors said to me, I was doing a workshop years ago in, I believe it was Turkey. It might have been, yeah, I think it was Turkey. This was years ago. You know, I'm from Jersey, from Brooklyn, New York, from Japan. I'm not much of a European cultural, I don't have that imprint, you know, or Turkish imprint or any of it. And I was playing gangster rap during one of the morning dances. And it was like positive lingo. Like it wasn't dirty, it wasn't like bad, but it was like rap. And it did not go well. And I remember my mentor, I remember my mentor saying to me, Ria, they haven't made friends with this yet.
That's a nice way to put it.
Oh, they haven't made friends with it. He was like, you've made friends with this. They haven't made friends with it yet. You need to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that really shifted a whole narrative of like, okay, I haven't made friends with this.
It's nice.
Life.
Yeah. It's funny, like the more I've kind of landed in myself, the more a certain appearance has come through, you know, a certain flavor. And just occasionally I have to remember like, oh, not everyone gets that, you know. I did a poem about my debaucherous adventures in Berlin the other day, and it's very much in like the British occultist Aleister Crowley used to write a lot of dark gothic poetry about the whore of Babylon and all this. So I wrote in that kind of flavor, and we like sent it out to our mailing list, right? Amongst all the marketing and education, whatever, just this poem of like, you know, I stepped down the steps and the whore of Babylon claimed me kind of thing, you know? And like, I got a lot of kind of dark femme Shakti babes loving it. And then I got a few like, hello, Dane, I'm going to have to unsubscribe because this is not really why I'm following you. And I really enjoy a lot of your material, but we had the word whore and the word church in the same sentence. And that was a lot for me. And I'm not even a Christian, but you know, and I was just like, and at first I'm like, what are you talking about? This is just some fun art. And then I'm like, kind of step back and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a very specific rabbit hole that I have gone down and live in. And like, what I think is cool is like, you know, yeah, dark ritual magic, gangster rap, integrating of the shadow, you know, being eaten alive by the succubus who lives beneath the city and how fucking pleasurable that is. And she like belches me out into the morning sunshine. And it's like, it's a poetic description of me basically going to the strip club and just being eaten alive for the evening. And it just takes a lot of, you know, what I could tell myself is, you know, they haven't made friends with that yet, you know?
That's right. They haven't made friends with that yet. It's true. It's like,
it's true.
If you haven't made friends yet with the sexuality, right? There's of course the esoteric spiritual sexuality, but there's also the very primal, gritty, dirty, debaucherous, like there's another side to it that can be very healing to welcome in, to be friends with. And there's a lot of medicine in it, especially if we bring responsibility, ethics, and care and consideration, and we meet the nervous system with the tolerance level. Absolutely. Yeah. Good stuff. Oof. Yeah. And I'm right there with you. I totally get, I get your flavor. I hear you. I'm so into it. And then when you meet the people who do vibrate with you and resonate with you on the multiple levels, oh, it's so good.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of my life is just traveling the world, meeting those people, you know. It's a fun gig right now. Like I'm just dipping into all the different networks and meeting all the witches and wizards that I can find. And it's a fun time.
Oh, yes. So good. I mean, clearly we can keep talking about this. There's so much more to dive into. And yeah, I'm just curious, like in this last few minutes, before we jump into something called quick fire questions. Which I did not prepare you for. Basically, I'll ask you a question and then 3 or 5 words or less, just channeling whatever comes through. But before we get to those, yeah, I'm just curious if there's anything else that you'd really like to channel or share around magic, sexual magic.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, I think really it's just about this understanding that we can bring intention and we can bring vibration, emotional energy, erotic energy into everything. That's a very kind of classical tantric worldview that the mundane is the divine. You can eat chocolate cake and you can just be stuffing your face, or you can eat it and taste the divinity in every bite, And I feel the same with everything, like bringing ritual into sexuality. Not that every time you have sex has to be some big ornate thing, but just the knowledge that like this is potentially a mystical power source. And so is my self-pleasure. And so is, my workouts now. I even do them. I do kettlebells on the balcony, and I'll do kind of breath work and visualizations in the rest period. And it's like, fuck, I'm doing magic right now because my body's super switched on and I'm kind of breathing and, and it's like, even this, which is the most 3D physical world activity. I'm lifting a heavy thing and putting it down again, but it's like, yeah, as it wakes me up, as it switches me on, just using that to be like visualizing my day, visualizing my life, and feeling my sex is activated, my breathing is activated, my fucking nervous system is switching on, I think that's, if anything, I want to get that across, is like everything can be magic, and it's just really about intentional living and about intentional use of our power and just knowing that we are powerful, we are the creators of our reality, even if we don't feel like it. Like even just starting to run that idea, which probably me at 19, there was a lot of doubt, like this is not going to happen. It's like, just fucking believe in it anyway. Okay, I'll try it. And then 2 or 3 years later, I'm the kid on the stage, whereas I used to be the kid washing the dishes, wishing, imagining. And so I think that's, if anything, I think I just want people to know you can live a creative, magical life. Like that's available for everyone.
So good. So good. Yes. And for some people, they have different origin points, right? On the 3-dimensional level, different challenges, culturally speaking. And yet there is a certain level in which we're all trapped in the human condition, so to speak.
Yeah. And whatever the conditions are,
the conditions are, and working with the machinery and the programming and the upgrades. And for sure,
yeah,
right there with you. All right, you ready for some quick fire questions?
Hit me.
In just a few words, what does freedom mean to you?
It's the sense of having a choice.
What did you eat for dinner last night?
I had 2 plates of chicken nachos and 2 double shots of mezcal.
Delicious. If you were a piece of furniture, what would you be?
I'd be like a little footstool, but I'd be like covered in like bat skin or like black leopard print or something, like some exotic alligator skin or something like that.
Of course you would. What's something you've failed at?
Fucking everything at some point. I've failed at business a bunch. I failed at relationships a bunch. I failed at leadership a bunch. Yeah.
Beautiful. What are you reading right now?
I'm reading 2 books right now. One of them is about a being called Genesis P. Orridge, a non-binary being who died recently, who was one of the pioneers of the industrial scene, who was also deep into like chaos magic and weird art, who is a kind of crazy but inspiring person. And the other one is called What I Talk About When I Talk About Running, by the Japanese author who has written a bunch of books. It's so dope. It's basically a novelist, but this is his running diary. So it's what the role that running has played in his life. He's ran marathons for 30 years, and he's written novels for 30 years. And he basically talks about how they're interlinked. It's really cool.
Ooh, so good. What do you know?
Murakami.
Yes, Murakami.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started on your path?
That the only real limit is how audacious of a vision I'm prepared to hold and step into.
That's right. I remember having a really big vision for my life when I was 9, and I was like, that's too much for me right now. And I had to like calm it down. Very interesting felt sense in the body. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
If you could wake up tomorrow and magically have gained a new skill or ability, what would it be?
I think it would be the ability to like download other skills really quickly. Like especially physical skills. Just be like, jiu-jitsu, hit me. Got it. Okay, great. Stock market, hit me. Got it. Awesome.
Kind of like the Matrix, like uploading programs.
Exactly.
That's like, you know, having 3 wishes. What's your first wish? You're like infinite wishes.
It's a bit of a cheat, isn't it? It's a bit of a cheat.
It's good. It's good. But it goes to show you're recognizing the skill of learning skills.
Yeah, I think I have a list of skills that I'm interested in, and there's 2 meta skills. And the meta skills are breathing and learning. They're the 2 things that if I could get really good at by the time I was 60, I think I'd be grateful because they make everything else better.
So good. Last but not least, what is your next book going to be about?
My next book is partly written. It's called Magic as Fuck or Magic AF. That's the current working title. And it's literally about a lot of what we talked about, which is an integral and practical approach to magic for, basically for people who are waking up, who want to be able to kick ass in the real world.
Brilliant. Beautiful. How can people find you? How can our listeners get in touch with you?
Easiest channel is Instagram at Dane.Tomas, Tomas, no H in Thomas. And I put out a lot of content through there. We do a lot of shoots and video and me ranting about various subjects and whatnot. And that kind of links to everywhere else. I got a new website, danetomas.com. Should be up in a day or 2. And it's got my album. I got an album coming out called Dark Wizard. So that'll all be on Insta and you can find everything else from there.
Love it. Thank you so much for today. You're fucking epic. Dark Wizard AF. So good.
Dark Wizard AF. Thank you, Ria. Appreciate you having me. It's been very fun.
Yeah.